Okay, we're back and we're gonna look at our deer and see what he needs. He's getting there, slowly but surely. I am gonna take the middle brush and I think it's time we're gonna shade around the top of his head, a little more shade on his chest. Here's my sample. You can see he still needs more shading, and his antlers. So I'm gonna go back again to my raw umber mix with a little bit of dark in there, a little bit of the Van Dyke brown, and bring it back to life. Rinse the brush. I like to rinse after I mix, just so I can kind of figure what's on my brush. And I'm gonna draw a little line for shading. Add some water. And start to blend it out towards his nose. Now don't touch his nose too much because the black will come back and reconstitute. If you notice, most of my painting is with the brush on a very flat angle, where I'm almost parallel to the surface. I'm just adding some color in here, under his eye, to give his face some shape. I'm going to leave a little bit of his lip lighter. Because when we see deer, a lot of times they have that lighter front lip. And I want to put some shading in front of his ear and under his antler. So for that I have to keep turning my little palette here. See how this palette's quite big enough for this many colors. And I'll start at a dark corner just to test. Pick up a little of the Van Dyke brown. Still not coming up. If it still doesn't come up dark enough, throw a little black in there. And you could even bring it over to here. There we go. I'm filling in that little corner, and then I'm going to spread it out. If I want it darker later, I could go back and make it darker. Now see, I got an ouchie there because I stuck my hand in there. And I'm just going to erase it with clean water and blot it. There were a couple spots on the previous segment. I don't know if you noticed them or not. And I thought, that's how I did that. So, because there's water flying here. Now I need a little bit darker mix into this, because I'm going to be starting to put in the darker areas. And I'm going to go under here. Oops. Now see, there's a big ouchie. It's so awkward with the camera and not trying to get my head in the way and all that stuff. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm going to pull some shade. And give him a fold. Now see, that went over the line a little, so we just try to pull it up as best as we can. This is where your paper comes into play. If you have really good paper, it allows you both to layer, and it allows you the paint to sit on top a little more and not be pulled in. I noticed with the cheaper paper, I think this is cheap paper I used from the dollar store, and the paint it absorbs right in, so you can't like move it at all, which is unfortunate. But now see, those little shade lines gave him so much shape. And he needs a little definition on his bottom lip. So I'm going to pick up a little of the darker raw umber mix. And again, do a little line. It's a lot of trial and error and a lot of back and forth. But it makes you feel artsy. It's fun. It's not just blocking in and shading. You know, it gives you a lot of opportunity to express yourself with your painting more. I know it's not for everyone, but I like this kind of project because you really have nothing to lose but a piece of paper. And as I said, you know, the paints, they're relatively very reasonable because look at how little I'm using. I mean, I put half of a pea size for most of these, and I could probably do 20 paintings with them. So it's a matter of, you know, how much you're going to keep your palette, how many you're going to do. This isn't for someone probably who likes to do a lot of multiples at once, you know, who's doing 40 or 50 of something for a party or your clubs or whatever. But it's a nice, relaxing change. There. I just deepened his nose a little. I'm going to let it dry. It's a little dark, and I may pull some off, but I'll let that dry. Now, the deer looks pretty good. I think I'm going to put one more little shade under here because his neck looks a little fat. So we want to pull it in. We're going to put him on a diet and pull this in here and give him some shape. Don't we wish it could be that easy? And I don't want to do a solid line. I'm kind of just smushing it. That's a word, right? The more you smush it, the more artsy and fun that looks. Now, isn't that nice? He looks pretty good. He needs more shade here. We're going to start the antler, though, next. We're going to leave him alone, let him dry more. And to shade the antlers, since he was done in Van Dyke Brown, the antlers, I am going to take a little bit of the black and mix it in with the Van Dyke to make it even darker. And I tip the brush with it, and I'm going to have the dark side to the bottom. And I'm going to do it as we did these lines, where I'm going to kind of draw a line. Choppy line. There, that's nice color. And I'm going to draw a line here. I'm going to move my palette a little then. There you go. I'm constantly fighting the battle so my head doesn't get in the shot. So you're watching what I'm painting instead of the top of my head. Yet moving around and showing you the palette. Go here. We're not going to outline it completely, but we're just going to kind of do the bottom edge for the shadows next to the ear. Now think of your light here. And bring it up. And by that time the other side settled a little bit. And then we're just going to blend it in with some water. I hope you're having fun with this. See how you get rid of those water lines? You just kind of go over them. If you want to add a little more color in. You know, everything doesn't have to be like color book perfect. Because if you look at an animal or, you know, any kind of animal, their fur isn't all one color. Their antlers aren't going to be one color. It's going to be a variance of colors. And this is only achieved with mixing. It would be hard to get this look in acrylic. I mean, you could do it. You'd have to dry brush and, you know, probably have 6 or 8 different colors and play around with them. Now see, that will take a minute to soften that line. I don't know what Keith's doing in there. I don't know if you guys could hear that. He's clapping. I'm not watching sports. Okay, there we go. There, so he is almost to the point of what I would call done. I think I'll give his eyes a little bit more detail. I think I'll pull this line down and a little in the back. And maybe a nostril, make a darker area there. It's very subtle. And with a dirty brush, give a little bit more, maybe there. Okay. And one last thing, I want to just make a little bit darker here. I'm using black, the black ivory, just mixing a little in. And then with a wet brush, just pick up a little bit for shadow to deepen that shadow in here. And give that ear a little bit of shading on it. Okay? So, I mean, you could play with it all day long, but as I said, the biggest thing is not to overwork it. So I'm going to say he's done right now, and we'll get on to the lettering. Okie dokie, on we go. I cleaned out this water thing and put fresh water in because it's good to do every once in a while. And I gave our little deer here a chance to settle, and he looks pretty good. So I am happy. For now, we could play with it later, but as I said, you don't want to overplay. The next thing I'm going to show you is the lettering, which is fun and not as hard as you think it's going to be. To do that, I wanted to make like a Prussian blue, which is one of my favorite colors. So it's like a greeny blue. And since I went away for a bit, I actually went for a walk, so I'll be sniffing. I have to wet up my paint, and I'm going to bring it to the middle this time to mix. And I'm going to bring the cerulean blue. It's going to be the main color. And just to keep the paints clean, I'm going to grab some of the Hooker's green. Now that's quite green. I want it bluer than green. So I'm going to go back and put a little bit more blue in. There. Look how pretty. It's a nice, rich, deep color. And if I want it really cool, I could put a tad of black. But that's good. That'll do. Now, the lettering, the word peace. It looks intimidating, but it's not. We're going to use the same method that we use for the antlers, which is to wet the area first. I'm going to try to keep my head out of here and still be able to see. My light has changed since I started videoing, and I hope it's not bad for you guys, because it's now dark out, being autumn. But if this lighting works well, then I'll be good, because that means I can do videos all winter without worrying. So what I'm going to do is dampen the paper. It doesn't even have to be wet, just a little shiny. And I'm using the littler brush again. I think this was a 2, that size. And once I dampen the letters, pick up some of the blue. And as you can see, once again, it just kind of follows the damp area. It's not as hard as you would think. You have to keep turning your page. Now this is a very strong color, and it is very dark, even on the first round. It depends how you mix it and how much water to paint ratio. But see, once it follows in, like you saw how fast it did that, I'll just bring this tail around with little short strokes. It doesn't have to be in one fell swoop. Just on the tip of that brush. Okay? That was easy, right? You don't have to be afraid of it. And this line is a little choppy, so I'm just going to snug up to it like we did our lines down here. And kind of move that paint over. Pull it around. Okay. Dampen the brush, and I have my paper towel here, but every once in a while I don't want it too wet because it'll go wild. And now you can see, because it's mostly water on the brush, where I'm dampening it. So I'm just going to kind of fill in that letter P. Because I think that first time you dampen the paper, it conditions it to absorb. And it does help you control where that paint's going to flow. Okay, so I followed my P around. Now I'm going to pick up a little color. Just tap it in. And once again, see how you're kind of just nudging it along the edges. See, it's way ahead of me filling in. This to me was really quite fun. Might have been the most fun part. Not really though, because I had fun with all of it. Pull it up and around. Now see, to me, this is easier than loading your brush with acrylic and trying to do stroke work. My friend Vera is really good at stroke work, but I guess if you practice, you get better, like anything. Okay. See, this is just little choppy strokes. And you could use whatever brush you like for lining. You could use that little 30-0 liner from Mary Kingsley Gigliesco is awesome. It's just, this is longer, it holds more water. Like I said, the saving grace on these brushes, I really honestly I think they were called mastodons, maybe, but I couldn't find them anywhere to tell you where to get them. I looked and I asked the Dynasty people, and they never kind of got back to me, so I don't know, but they're just regular little round brushes. Now, the Ease is going to be next. The reason I picked this font for us to practice on is because I liked all these angles made it easy. And I'll show you. And the letter E. The P was kind of the exception because it's a fancy letter. But I know you probably can't see my lines, but it's all the same angle. And what I'm doing is I'm wetting in that same direction for the angle first. And then I'm going to go up and down. You could turn your paper, of course. And I'm going to do this angle. So it's like blocking in, really. And then go across. Okay, so I dampened that. And then we're going to pick up our color. And you can see by the top it almost dried already, but you can see by there it's following where it's damp. So it's quite easy. I do these videos in little short segments, so you don't have to watch the whole things if you're not inclined to do so, which is fine. I never know whether to show you everything or the short version, but then I usually show the long version. See, now there was a lot, so I dipped my brush just to pull off a little water because you don't want it to go wild. You want enough that it's going to cover the paper a little. It doesn't have to be even either, because we could go over with a damp brush and even out the colors, because they will reconstitute because they're watercolors. Remember that. It's a whole different mindset. There's no hurry. It's very relaxing. Like, I know people don't like the fact that it can be wild, but it's very easy to tame watercolors. Now see how nice that looks? Very easy. We'll go on to our letter A. And I'm not one to try to get you to buy every supply under the sun. Don't follow my example, because I buy a lot of supplies, but I do settle on certain supplies that I really like. Excuse me, I'm sniffing because I was outside and it's cold today. Okay, there's the A with the water. But if you're serious about trying to do some nice things with your artwork, I do believe it's important that you consider things like light fastness and, you know, how much pigmentation is in your paint, because while it's nice to get stuff cheap, if you do something nice and then it doesn't come out, or it doesn't last, it fades over time, then you're going to be upset. And I did that a couple of months ago. I was playing with watercolors, and I went to the dollar store because I didn't feel like using my Fabriano paper from England It costs a couple bucks a sheet to play on. And I was really sad because I painted a really nice raven. And I'll get it before the next segment and show you. And as I was going through it and trying to layer on it, it wasn't taking any more layers. It was starting to like pill. You know how when you get paper that's wet, when you erase too much on it. I remember in school where you erase a hole through to the paper to the desk. That's kind of what it was doing. And good paper doesn't do that. Now this is a medium grade paper. This is just like Office Depot or Staples. I think it's called Hilroy, Hilroy, because it's only for a card. It's nothing that's going to be kept for years and years. And you could see, because I spread that thin, it's already drying. I think you could see. It's already getting dry, but like I said, the nice thing about watercolors, you make all these pretty mixes, and you could use them over and over again. You can use them, you know, 5 years from now if you keep the palette. But that's why I put only tiny little crumbs. You know, you have that, well, I do anyway. I was raised as an artist on acrylics, so I was so used to having, you know, to dispense as much paint as we need for the project, and that's about it. Because even with the Masterson wet palettes, I mean, let's face it, they dry up after a couple weeks. And, you know, mixing with acrylics is really not fun. Recently, the company that I use all the paints, all my acrylics from DecoArt, discontinued a load of paints again. And I'm not thrilled about that because many of the colors that they give us for substitutions to mix up take 2 or 3 colors, 6 parts of one thing and 2 parts of another. And you know, a lot of the colors in the substitutions have also been discontinued. So it's an ongoing thing, and it confuses people. It makes it hard on everybody. You know, I understand they don't want to sell paint that doesn't sell anymore, or keep making it, but it's hard on us as designers when things get changed over so much, because we tell our students, and we build pattern packets with those colors, and people can't get them. So I decided to show you how to mix a little bit. Because when I'm doing acrylics, about 90% of the time, I'll just pull the colors that's listed in the project list. And I kind of look at the picture and do my own thing. Because it's just too hard to be mixing colors. You know, for the most part, I'll follow it, but if I don't have a color sitting next to me, I'll just mix it down to make a deeper red or deeper blue, or highlight a color, or make a lighter highlight. And once you learn how to do that, it's so easy, and you're not a slave to the markets anymore. So anyway, there are our letters. I'll take a break and we'll do our little ornaments and finish up. Okay?